Okay, so tonight I'm going to be talking about Node.js. It's one of my passions. Okay. So my name's Chris, like Mike said. I have a bunch of repos on GitHub if you guys want to check it out. I have a blog. I don't write very often, but when I do, it's on there. Okay. So I'm kind of going to assume that you guys have certain knowledge, and that the knowledge is you guys are all familiar with HTTP. You guys know what the difference between GET and POST requests. You know about HTTP headers, kind of. A little bit of familiarity with like JSON, and then like you're comfortable with like a little bit of JavaScript syntax. Like, oh, this looks like a variable declaration, or this looks like a method call. Is that about right for everybody here? Your level of comfort? Okay. So to like motivate this talk, I was thinking about different things, and I wasn't quite sure until I was like, okay. The way that I like to do things is I like to have a problem and to solve it. So to motivate this talk, I'm going to have a problem, and then we're going to go through like a solution. So my problem in general is like probably pretty common to you guys. You have this big file, and you want to transfer it to like a friend. For me, that file is probably like a virtual machine image, right? So it's kind of really large, and you can't just like upload it somewhere or and then download it. Usually, like if you're using like Dropbox, I think their max is like 2 gigs for the free account. And then you guys are on different networks, right? So you can't just connect directly to their machine. And you don't want to spend too much money because you just want it to be like a quick solution, and you want to do it and then for it to be done. And then you like can't configure the router, so you can't do port forwarding because that's cheating. Okay, but you guys have you both have internet access, so that's a good thing. Okay, so this is kind of like the diagram of the problem, right? You guys are both behind routers, so you have NAT, so you can't connect directly, but you guys have the internet. So this is kind of like where Node.js falls in. I want to use Node.js to solve this problem, and let me move over one more. Okay, so like I want to have this like server in the middle that relays for me, right? Because I can spin up a server on Heroku is what I had, because they're a free service, and I can spin up a server, and I want to just say, hey, go to that server and download a file for me, but there's like a little bit of stuff involved because Heroku is all about like stateless applications, so you can't like upload the file and then download it. And kind of like the solution is that they'll make like a GET request to the server, and then that server will make WebSocket's connection to me, the client, and then I'll post the file and they'll download it. Does that make sense? Like, is that overall solution to this problem? Yeah? We're good? Okay. And then, okay, so I chose Node.js for the solution because, well, one, I'm really comfortable with it and I really like it, but also because it has a lot of really cool features, I guess. So it is JavaScript, and the JavaScript engine that it's running is Chrome's V8, so it's pretty performant. It is single-threaded, just like the browser JavaScript environment. But they focus on high concurrency. And so I said this to somebody earlier, and they were like, that makes no sense. It's single-threaded, but it's highly concurrent. And the way they achieve that is through asynchronous non-blocking I/O. And that essentially means that anything that's like that takes a long time, like opening a file or hitting the network for like making a HTTP request or connecting to a database, those things are like blocking, and they take a long time. They're not like the same thing as accessing main memory, right? Those things are like super fast, whereas I.O. is usually slower, right? So asynchronous is like you say, hey, okay, do this thing, and when you're done, let me know so that I can continue doing with whatever I wanted with that thing, if that makes sense. But yeah, okay, so it's really good for building network applications, which is what we're building here, right? There's the network right there, and it has pretty good HTTP support, so that's what I'll be building, HTTP server. And it's got pretty good stream abstractions, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But this graph here is kind of like why Node.js is, like why it exists, is like you have 2 models for concurrency. Like if you guys have ever used Apache as an example for building your web applications, the way that they get concurrency is that for every request, they spawn up a thread, and then they fulfill the request, and then they respond, and then they close the thread. But operating system threads are really heavyweight for this. So this solution of having a single thread and then just having asynchronous I/O turns out to be much more efficient. And you can, if you look at the concurrency, right, as you get more and more connections, your memory is still like stable. Whereas with the Apache, where they do the different threads, it like grows a lot more quickly. Does that make sense? Does that make sense as like where Node falls into like other web servers? Okay. Okay, so this is kind of me elaborating more on asynchronous versus synchronous. So and this is the one thing that like catches people off guard when they first hear about Node. They're just like, well, and actually JavaScript in general, like if you're doing browser stuff, it's kind of confusing. But people like when they're usually introduced to programming, they're usually used to like this synchronous thing where they do A, then they do B, then they do C, and you always wait for A to finish, then B to finish, then C to finish, and that's like very natural for us. So programming in Node at first is very like unnatural because you have this notion of like do this thing and let me know when you're done and I'll continue, which is kind of weird. Like if you look at this example, this makes sense, right? Hello world. But if you look at this, it's kind of backwards, right? It'll print the same. I guess I could let me run that. I have that in my examples, and then async. So do hello. It'll wait for the 1,000 milliseconds, and then it'll do world. Does that make sense? So like you're always, and this is like how a lot of their programming is done, is you'll always what is this called? Registering for events. That's like the main thing. It has the same effect. Like if you do a sleep, like I guess the other option would have been, and I guess I should have had it up here. Like if you do hello and then underneath that you have a sleep for 1,000 milliseconds and then you do world. That would have been the more like comparable example. So yes, that's what this set timeout does. And that's not a Node thing. That's a JavaScript thing. So if you could do that in the browser. So that's like another one of the other nice things about JavaScript. If you're a browser developer and you're really comfortable in the browser developing JavaScript, now all of a sudden you have these like superpowers on the like back end because it's essentially the same environment. It's single-threaded, event-based. So it opened up a whole other world development for like browser-side people, if that makes sense. Okay. So I mentioned over here that one of the things that makes Node.js like great is streams. So I'm going to talk a little more about streams. So streams is an abstraction that you probably like heard from another language, but Node.js has their own. And there's two basic streams that we have, and that's a read stream and a write stream. That's exactly what they sound like. A read stream is something that you read from, and a write stream is something that you write to. So an example of a read stream is an std_in, which is the standard input, right? You want to read from whatever like someone has piped to you or in the prompt or whatever. And associated with that, there's like a data event. So like when you get data from the stream, this is how you can listen for it, right? There's also some methods where you can pause and resume. Because like if you want to apply back pressure to the stream, you like stop sending me stuff, pause. Okay, now you can keep sending me, resume. And then std_out is an example of a write stream. And the main method there is write, right? You just want to write to the stream and it'll go somewhere else. And these stream abstractions are used for things like TCP, for UDP, for reading files. Anytime you're thinking about like large files, you can use a stream or large amounts of data, which is really nice because it ends up being very efficient, right? If you have a large file, you don't want to load the whole thing in memory. You just want to look at little chunks of it and do things with like little chunks of it. You don't load it all up. Okay, so here's like a little example that kind of I put together. So you have like, so by default, std_in is in the Node world, it's like paused, so you have to resume it. So does that make sense there? So we resume it, and then we can write something, and then we can wait for our data event to get something, and then we're just going to echo it out by writing it back out. And we're going to write out also the length. And okay, let me just show you this example. That's echo CLI. So it wrote the first line right here, right? Because it's a stream and it's writing to it. And then I can write like, you know, ABC. And okay, there's 4 characters because it's the 3 characters and then the return, and it's just bringing it all out. So are you guys kind of comfortable with streams now? A little bit? Anything off? No? Okay, cool. So the other good thing about Node is HTTP support. Okay. So here's like a basic example of an HTTP server, which is like, what, 5 lines? And you essentially have like a full-blown HTTP server, which is really nice. There's one thing I'm introducing here that might throw people off, it's this require thing. So in Java, you have like import, and in Node, you have require. And this require thing can return any valid JavaScript value. So you can return numbers, you can return objects, you can return functions, anything you want. This require thing can give you, and then you bring it into your scope by using this like assignment, right? So like import this thing and assign it to this thing, and then I can use it. So this is a pretty common thing you'll see in any Node script you look at. And then also I wanted to point this out right here. It's pretty common to use the environment, your environment variables to configure your server. So here I'm looking at the port environment variable. I guess I should have covered this earlier. So, oops, sorry about that. So you know there's this process object. So in the browser JavaScript, there's like window and there's document, and those are the globals associated with that. But in Node, our global is like process, which has std and sc. And it has a bunch of nice things that you would need if you're writing a server-side program. One of the things it has is this environment, which is how you get a hold of the environment variables. And here I'm looking for the port, and that might not be set in the environment, so then I have a default, which is port 3000. Okay, so then this basic HTTP server, all it's doing is it's going to create a server, and the API for creating a server is you pass it back this function. This function accepts a request and a response, and then it acts on those requests and responses. And here, does it make sense as to what it's going to do? It's going to take the request, which is a read stream, right? Because when I'm making a request, like let's say I'm going to push up some data to the server, all that data is going to be available as a stream on this request object. And then it's a stream, so I can do whatever I want with it. So I can pipe it to a file. I can pipe it to another stream. I can do all these like really nice things because they have this nice stream abstraction. All I do is kind of silly, I just pipe it to response. So it's just going to be an echo server. And let me just demonstrate that. So if you come over here, let me quit this one. Examples, and then echo server. Okay, so now I've started the server, and let me copy this curl, which is going to do a post request, and it's going to post up this data. So, and it sent back exactly what I gave it. So if I change like hello node or from, right, it's just going to send it back. So does that kind of make sense? Is that simple? Does that sit poorly with anyone or not? Is that good? Okay. So now that we have like our basics covered, I'm going to start working on the solution I kind of presented earlier, which is this like relay server that's going to help me push files to somebody and let them download it. Okay. So I'll be popping back and forth between the terminal and the slides. Oh, okay, it exists. Okay, so I'm going to start from scratch. So hopefully, like, if there's anything confusing about anything I do, please let me know so I can clarify. But we're just going to build this thing from scratch. So you should see all the different pieces come together, which is what I hope. Did I copy that? Okay. So this is like a common, and I've just noticed this by looking at different repositories online, is that this is the structure of most applications. You have this lib folder, which has all like your application code. You have this bin folder where you have like executable JavaScript. So like you can write like shell scripts in JavaScript where they're like executable like command line tools. And then there's like this test directory where you apply your test scripts. So it's just a common convention I've noticed. Okay, so now I'm going to wait to do this until I explain what exactly NPM is. So NPM is it comes with Node.js, and it's their package manager. So like with Java you have Maven, with Python you have pip, with Node you have NPM, which I think stands for Node Package Manager. There's like a bunch of funny jokes about what it really stands for, but I'm just going to call it Node Package Manager. And so it does a bunch of things that are like kind of different than other package managers. One of those things is whenever you install like third-party or just whenever you install Node modules, it'll install them locally versus like globally. If I installed it for my project, that means if I have another project in another folder, it doesn't have access to the same module. Which sounds weird, like, oh, why wouldn't you want it to be global? And it's really nice because then when you have different versions of those packages, then they don't conflict. Because they're separate. You can install things globally if you want, and generally people do that for like command line applications or things like that. And it's this -g flag, which you'll see me use a few times. Another big thing that's nice about NPM is that all of your dependencies are defined recursively, which means that I can depend on A and it can depend on B. All right, I'll just use this. Okay, so I depend on first package, and it depends on this third package, but version 1. And then I also have another dependency, which is second package, and it depends on third package, but a different version, version 2. And a lot of dependency management things, this wouldn't work because their dependencies are flat. So you have to resolve the version conflict. With Node or with NPM, it's just like, well, it just works because everyone has their own copy, and you never have to worry about it, which ends up being really nice. So if you ever use something like Bower, it's not, with Bower you have to, okay, I need this version of jQuery, I'm using this library needs this version of jQuery, I have to resolve all these issues. So it's just a headache. With NPM, it's kind of like it's minimal friction, is how I describe it. Okay. Did everything there make sense? Do you guys have any questions about NPM? Okay. Okay, so now I've kind of just talked about NPM, so let me init our project. And it'll ask me things about like my project, like what's the name, what's the version, I can give it a description, all these things. And it produces this package.json, which I'll talk about when I come back over here. This package JSON is just like a manifest of your project. It lists your dependencies, it lists your dev dependencies, which are like dependencies, but only for development time. So you can remove them when you actually go to deploy. It has all these nice things about it. The one thing I want to point out is like these scripts and this bit thing. I'll use this a little bit later. It's actually pretty cool. But it's like a way of, it's like another thing that NPM does for you that I'll show later. Okay, so it created this thing for us, this package JSON, and it's good to go. So okay, moving on. Okay, so now I've initialized our project and we can start working on it. So the first thing we need to build on, let me go back to the diagram, is this relay server, which is up here, okay? And if we go back over, okay. So this is the first time I'm going to use NPM to pull in dependencies. And these are some, Express and Socket.io are pretty common dependencies you'll see. It's like if you're building an HTTP application or whatever. These are probably like the first things you like pull in. So it's nice for you to get some exposure with those libraries because you're probably using them a lot. And if you see this --save flag, what that'll do is, let me show you. It'll install it and it'll put it in your package JSON. So it'll save it so that later on, when you like download someone's Node module, you can just install and then it'll be listed right here. So you see that, and it's just like, what's the dependency? What's the version of the dependency? And then again, it puts it in this Node modules directory. And so I said earlier that NPM, all the dependencies are defined recursively. So if you go into my Node modules, and in there I have a dependency Express, and it has its Node modules, you know, and so on and so forth. It doesn't have any modules, except, and then it has, so they're all recursively defined and they resolve really well. Okay, so and then again, like I said earlier, this is kind of how we require our, this is how we require our dependencies, how we import them. Okay. And so Express has this pretty neat API, and it's like, remember earlier I showed you guys the HTTP module. It does all the heavy lifting. Express is kind of just like a wrapper around the like built-in HTTP module, and all it does is give you like some routing help and some middleware help. So it's just like it's a lightweight library around the native HTTP modules that makes it easier to build things. So this is how you create the application by just calling Express. And so like I said earlier, require can let you return functions, and so that's the instance here. Require return to function, and I assigned it to Express, and then I called it here, which is permission. And then part of their API for Express is you can define like these routes. So I want to define a get route for getting the VM, and then a post route for posting the virtual machine, or is it like any large file, I can use this. And let me go back to the image. Yeah, so I want to define this route right here, this get VM, right? And I want to define this post on the server. which is right here. And then after that, similar to before, after how I set up the HTTP server, I can look at the environment for my configuration, and then I can, since it's essentially just extending it, it has the same API. So before it was HTTP server.listen, and now it's just app.listen. And then I can give it a callback that lets me know when it's finally bound to that port, and I can just log it so I can access it. And then the other big part of this code example is socket.io, which are you guys familiar with like WebSockets? A little bit? Yeah, so it's like a way for the server to like push things to the client, because usually HTTP is a request response, so the client makes a service to a request to the server, and then you get a response. This way, I can, as a server, ping a client to say, hey, this thing happened, or hey, here's some data, or just in general to make the communication go the other way. And here's kind of like its API. I can just say, hey, I have this server, can you listen on it? And then there's the two important events, right? So JavaScript, a lot of events. The two important events for socket.io is this connection and disconnection, and that represents when a client has connected to this WebSocket server, and when a client has disconnected from this WebSocket server. And what I do is save a reference to the socket, so I can use it later to bother the client and say, hey, I need that file. So let's just grab all this and lib and node relay server. Okay, so just copying the code over. I could have done like live coding, but I think that would have ended poorly. So this is like a compromise for me. Okay, does this make sense to everybody? Like what the server is going to do? It's going to sit there. It's going to wait for somebody to make a request to get the large file, and then when it gets that request, it's going to notify me, the client. I'm going to post the image, and then they're going to download it. Yeah. Okay. So like here, I have this get VM and post VM. I really didn't define them, so right now I'm going to define them. So this get VM is a function, and again, you'll notice this request response. This is like the interface for defining something that'll handle that HTTP route. Is it'll take request response, where request represents the HTTP request and response represents the HTTP response. And I'll check for the socket variable, which was over here, right? I kept a little reference to it here, and I'll say, hey, is this thing null? If it's not null, it means that this relay client has connected. So if this relay client connects to this relay server, it means that that socket isn't null, if that makes sense. So I can actually ask for that file. Yeah, okay. So if it's not null, then I can bother the client and say, hey, give me the VM. And then I have, since this function can't fulfill that request quite yet, I just put it into this array, which I treat like a queue. And then otherwise, right, it's like a 502 is a pretty common error you'll get for when you're trying to use a proxy and it can't fulfill your request because the thing that it's trying to proxy is not available. So I thought that was a good error to give back. So we have get VM, and then post VM will actually like satisfy the request, because this is when I upload the like virtual machine image, which is when I upload the virtual, and then they can download it. And so again, you'll see like this this pipe thing, which is like earlier, right? We were talking about streams. So the request object is actually also a stream, and I can use it to take the post body and just push it over and be like, I don't want it. I just want to give it to the person that wants it. So it's just reading the information, which I think is pretty cool. And then I can also pass along headers, and this will make more sense later, because you need to pass stuff like how big is the file, what's the file name. So you can use that with headers, and I'll just forward them along. And then I'll wait for when they're done uploading the file. I'll just say, okay, the upload was successful, 200. We're good to go. Otherwise, right, it's a 500, it's a server error. So let me grab these two snippets of code. And so you'll notice I have to put it up here because for me to use it down here, it has to be defined. So I'll put that in there. And then the other one is post VM. Nope. Post VM. Is this code making sense, guys? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And we can test it. Oh, actually, let's just add logging. So one of the other cool things that Express gives you is middleware. And middleware is a really nice abstraction to like put things in between HTTP requests. So like maybe a common use case you guys are thinking about is like interceptors, or a common analogy is like interceptors. I think we use that a lot in DDF. Interceptors, and it's really easy to add your own. It looks essentially just like the other callback where there's a request response, but now there's a next thing. And it just means that you don't have to respond. You can say, hey, whatever function is registered next to handle this, just let them handle it. And you could do all types of things. Like a common use case is parsing the body. So if your body's in a specific format, like it's URL encoded or it's JSON or it's any format, they can parse it. Authentication, right? If you have security, there's an endpoint you don't want people to get access to. You can have authentication middleware in the middle that says they're not allowed to get through because they don't have a specific token or something like that. And then my use case is logging. So I use this other library called Morgan, which I can just pop into here. No, I need to go into here. Yeah. And that'll install. And it's really nice because it's like that's 2 lines and I get automatic logging for all my HTTP stuff. So let me put that in here, put it up here. And then to use the thing, oh, I guess I should mention this last part. It's like, they're applied in the order that they're added. So if I have like middleware ABC, they'll get applied to the request in the order ABC. So I need to make sure that I put use this middleware at the top, or else it won't log any of the handlers because it's after it. Okay. So use Morgan, and then okay. So now I can run it. So it's running. It's listening on port 3000. I can copy this guy. I can put him up here. Okay, and this is what we expect if I go to bad gateway, because I haven't created the client yet, which that's the next part. Okay. Any questions? No? Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the relay, or I guess I missed this part. So remember earlier I was talking about this script tag. So it's a way to tell Node or NPM more about your project. So one of the common things is you'll give it like this start key, which lets NPM know how to start your server. And this is useful for things like PaaS, which platform as a service, and the one that I'm going to be using in this demo is Heroku. And it takes advantage of this convention, so that all it needs to know to start your server is npm start, and you can do whatever you want in here, and it'll run this command to start your server. So I'll just grab this right here and put that in the package.json. Okay. Put this in the package.json under scripts. Yeah, and then a comma. Okay. And then to test out that it works, you just do the same thing. It's essentially the same thing. npm start, it starts it. And I can come over here and still get the same error, bad gateway. Okay. And that'll be useful later for when I deploy it to Heroku, so that I can actually put it in the middle between us so that we can push and pull the file. Okay. So the second part is the client. And again, we had Socket.io, now we have the Socket.io client. So I can put that in here. And that will download. Okay, so we can go over this code. So all the other modules I've kind of pulled in. Some of the native modules that come with Node is, like you saw earlier, HTTP. There's another one, it's called FS, which is for the file system. There's Path, which is for dealing with file system paths. It's really nice. So me just pulling them in again. And so let me talk about this module exports. So you see how I'm requiring something? The way that FS actually gets something that exports something that I can use is it uses this module.exports. So when somebody requires this script, this relay client.js, what they're going to get is this function that I've defined here. So that's pretty neat. And again, this can be any valid JavaScript value, a number, an object, a function. I just happen to be a function. And all this function does is it says, hey, let me resolve this path, because it may have been relative to like where you were executing to the current working directory. It may have been absolute. let me just resolve it, and let me check it exists. Let me check that it exists. And so traditionally, everything in the file system library is asynchronous. This is an example of where maybe synchronous is okay because I don't want it to continue. So I want it to wait until it checks that, hey, does this file exist? Okay, cool. And I don't want to wrap it in a callback because this is simple enough. And then I connect to the relay server, and I just wait for them to ping me and say, hey, can I get the VM? And then when they do ping me, all I do is push up the file to them. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. 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 I just, for me, the example is a virtual machine image. This thing could be like any binary file. It could be a video, and the focus was that it had to be like a large file. Yeah. I ping once, and then I push the file, and then the server lets the client download the file from them. And then my friend has what I wanted them to have, and then we can close all the connections and all that. So yeah, it's like spin it up, tear it down, super quick. Okay, so let me push that into lib, and I think I called it relay client. And relay client, because we're going to do some more edits, right? Okay, let me close that. Okay, so this is what we had in the slide. This module exports thing, checking if the file exists. So I need to define this thing right here, this push file. And this is one of like what I'm about to show you is like one of the cooler things about JavaScript. Right here, the ability to like return functions from functions. Okay, so this push file it's a function, and I pass it a relay URL. So what is the URL for my relay server, and then the file to actually upload. And it creates this like this object that has like the protocol, it has the path, all the things, and then I can set the headers on it and say, okay, I want it to be a post. So this is it's kind of annoying, but it's like this is the API for making the HTTP request. You have to create this object that has all this information, and then just right here's where you actually make the request. You say, hey, HTTP, make this request. Here are my options, and then I get a response, and I pass it a callback, which has a response, and then I get back a request that I can write to. It's a write stream, and this response is a return. So it's just like it's the opposite of the like handlers that we talked about before, because now the request is something we can write to because we're a client, and the response is something we can read from because we're a client. If that makes sense. Okay. And this is really cool right here. This is what I was saying. We're going to call this function, and that function is going to return a function, and it's going to have access to these variables. So even though OPTS is defined in this outer function, we're going to have access to it in this inner function because the inner function closes over the variables of the outer function. So that's like one of the things that you'll notice about JavaScript. I kind of like that pattern to kind of compose things and to split them apart. But let me just grab this and put it in here. So now we have this push file thing that pushes the file, and it does this with these headers. It sets the length so that when the person's downloading the file, they can know how much of the file, because you can stream it and that's how long it is, and it can just keep, or you can tell how long it is, and then it can give the like user, my friend who's downloading the VM, it can give them a status for how long it's going to take, because they know how much and then the file name is right here, because I want them to have a file name that's better than some random thing the browser decides. Okay. So we have this relay client. Okay, so now we have tests. So like any good developers, what we do is we write tests. And so the test libraries that I used were Tape. It's another JavaScript testing library. You can use whatever you want. There's 10 of them. There's Mocha, there's Tape, there's Jasmine. They're all pretty nice. JSHint. This is for doing static analysis on JavaScript, so it doesn't take much effort to set up, and you just might as well have it, and it'll do static analysis on your files, on your JavaScript files. So I had copied. Okay, it'll install. Okay, so this test, this is like pretty common, and it's more of an integration style test where I'm going to spin up the server and the client, and I'm going to, I'm going to make a request, and then I'm going to assert something about the response. That's essentially all I'm going to do. So here's my setup. To set it up, I'm gonna when I require this relay server, it's just gonna spin it up, and then I'm gonna start up a client, which I've included here. And remember, the client takes in a relay URL and a file path. So my server is going to start up on localhost port 3000, which is what I have to tell my client, hey, connect to the server that's over here. And then I want the actual file that I'm going to let them download is the test script itself, which is pretty cool. Because, like, why not? And then there's this download test, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. And then teardown is kind of like, it's really dirty, but it works. I just kill the process because I don't want to like shut down the server. I just kill it. Okay, so this is our first test. And it goes into the test directory, relay.js. No, keep doing this. Cat that in there. Okay. Test, relay. Okay, so we have this relay thing. And I'm going to add this download test. And that's going to do, it's going to simulate like the whole thing, essentially. It's this big chunk of code. And all it's going to do is it's going to make a request to the server. It's going to make a request to the server. It's going to be a GET request. So like this is going to simulate my friend making a request to get the file, and it's going to download it. And so again, it's a stream. So I have to buffer the stream, and I'm going to buffer it to this string. And then I'm going to check that the thing I got back is equal to what I expect it to be, which is the file that's the actual test script. Okay, so we can copy that and put it in here. Is that font? I guess I should ask. Is this font good? You guys can see it fine? Sorry about that. Okay, so we have this test script thing. So before the other script, this script key and npm that we talked about was start. There's other ones like pretest, and a good pretest is to just do the JS hint static analysis of all the JavaScript. You have your semicolons. Is there no syntax errors? So that's the pretest. And then to run the actual test, we can just say, hey, tape, just look at this directory full of tests and just run them. So if I grab all these, and again, the reason for having these like conventions is that other people can depend on them. So like before, start was something that Heroku could use because it's a convention. And so things like CI, like if you have Jenkins, or if you have like, what's the other one? Travis CI. I think Travis CI uses this one. It was just called npm test, which is what we're going to do because we told npm how to test our thing. So if we go npm test, I hope they pass. There's a bad. Well, see, there we go. This is doing something useful, right? Line 15. What's going on? Okay, let's do that. Where is it? Oh, actually, that's another thing. It actually did run them because it'll complete if I do like that. It'll run the tests because it'll like, so there's install, and then you could do I, and it'll try to match it. So that's one of the other cool things that npm does. So that was, the test is actually found me. Look at the relay. This is the issue with, what is all this yellow stuff? Let's see what line it was. This is, I have my search open. That's lame. Okay, so line 33. Let me figure this out real quick. Lib. Yeah, this is exactly. Relay, okay. URL. I think that's what I needed to do. I think I updated the code, but I didn't update the slides. Okay, so yay, successful, right? Successful test. So here what you'll see is I simulated my friend doing a GET request to get the file. and then and then you'll see me doing a post to push the file, and yeah, so it worked, right? Hopefully, or the test is lying to me. Okay, so now we have test, and then again, since we use npm, we can easily pop this into like Travis, and it'll work. Another cool thing is like you can, I said earlier, you can do like bash scripts kind of in JavaScript, and so this is how you have this like binary or this bin key that you tell npm about, and it'll symlink your JavaScript files that are executable, and then you can just call it like any other command line application. So for our client, this would be nice because me, when I want to share the files, I'm going to like share this file, and then it just works. So that's what this is doing. It's taking my relay client, and it's getting 2 command line arguments. Well, the first one, so you see 0 and 1 are taken. They're by default node, the process, and the script, the path to the script. So then 2 and 3 argv, which is your command line arguments, are going to be, by convention, the relay and then the file. And then I'm just going to say, hey, client, can you relay this file? Okay. And this is something also you need with like executable scripts. It's like a Linux thing, right? You need to have the shebang at the top. And then you also need to make sure it's executable. So if I grab this code and I pop it into bin and I share works, I need to do the redirection in there, and command D, chmod +x, bin, share. So now I created a script that could call my JavaScript, which is really nice. And then this npm thing. So we talked about scripts. There's this bin key, and this is how, I'll just show you guys, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. In here, I can say, okay, I have a binary in my package. So then when somebody globally installs it, they'll have this command line application that they can do. And to test it, you can do this like npm ln thing. So npm ln. And all it does is it symlinks. It symlinks this, right? So now I have a share. And hey, I got that exception that's saying there's not any arguments. I can say, let's just try this out. Okay. So I have this server npm start, and it's on port 3000. So I can share. Here's my relay server, and I'm going to share my package JSON. So connected to it over the sockets, I can come over here and go to localhost port. So before it was for a bad gateway. Oh, there it is. It's the package JSON. I don't know if you guys saw it. So I just downloaded the package. So it works. It works, guys. Okay. Let's see. And I published it earlier, but you can also, it's super easy to, so like I wrote all this JavaScript code, I want to share it with my friends. NPM is a great place to share code. It's like anarchy. You can publish whatever you want. I think when it first came out, someone like published a bunch of episodes of a TV show to this public. But yeah, you can do whatever you want, unless the name's already taken. So then you have to, and this is how you publish. I already kind of published it. So if you guys want to use my cool software, right, you can just npm install g, and I called it Node Relay. I think Ryan installed it early and it worked for him. And it's just gonna pull it down, install it, and then I should have that share thing that I just showed you guys, where I can say, here's the relay, here's the file, I'll share it. So it makes it super easy to like do things like that. Okay, so let me deploy to Heroku real quick, because this is like the last part. We're almost there. We're almost there. Let's see. So I have this Node Relay thing. It needs to be a Git module, Git repo. That's what I meant to say. And then in here, I can do git ignore, because I don't want it to check in. This is pretty common too. Git ignore. And in here, I don't want to check it in my node modules, because that would just be sucky. Because then it would put all that in the repo. So if I do a git status, git add -u, git status, git, oh yeah, -u. I'm being silly. Git commit. Initial commit, even though I had all that code. This is a great commit message, guys. Okay, so then, oh, that's another talk. Somebody else should do that talk. I don't want to do that talk. Okay, so Heroku is this thing I mentioned earlier. It's a PaaS, a platform as a service. And it's free. I can test my node servers on there, and it's really easy to create an application. Heroku create, right? It's super simple. I love tools that are simple. And it just created me this application, and it's so simple that I didn't even need to tell it what to call it. It just made up a name for it, which I guess is Fierce Coast. I don't know what that is, but that's the thing I'm going to connect to. Yeah. I'm about to. So I told Heroku that I want to create this application, but I haven't pushed the code to it yet. So I'm about to do that, which is actually really nice. It's like really developer centric. So if you want to use Heroku, it's like for developers. And I think you get one. They have like a dyno is their unit of like executions. You have like one server is essentially one dyno, and you get one. Like it's like one is free, but there's like you have to sleep 6 hours a day or so. There's a lot of like stuff for it. Stipulations, but it's really good for like testing things. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do git push Heroku, because when I did a create, it added an alias in my git repo that's Heroku. I'm just going to push up my code to it. And since I told it how to start it and it recognizes it's package JSON, I didn't have to do any configuration. It just works. I just push the code and it spins it up, and I don't have to do anything, which is really nice. Okay. I guess I'm almost done. So I'm going to have to wait for it to build. Because and like if you look at the record, the only thing it's doing, it says, oh, I know it's a Node.js application. I'm gonna pull down Node for you, pull down npm, so I can do the npm install and the Node start and all that stuff. There we go. Okay, cool. So it just deployed it, and it's up in the cloud and it's working, hopefully. Okay, where was that URL? There was a URL here. Here it is. And they gave me the so what they do too is they do reverse proxying for you, so you can spin up a bunch of them and they'll do load balancing for you automatically, which is really nice. Which is how they set this up. And again, 502 gateway, right? So that's cool, right? I got it in the cloud. All my examples are HTTP, so we're not gonna use HTTPS. Okay, so I have this thing. I have my share thing. So let me share my package JSON. So I'm going to share, that's the relay server, share my package JSON, and it's shared. So now anybody can come over here and they can just download it, right? Super easy. So you guys could right now go to this weird URL and download the file. And since it uses the stream abstraction and it's not buffering everything, I can also share like a really big, let's see, I have a virtual machine image over here, repos, and then package.box, which is like the Vagrant box format thing. Okay, so I click on this, it's downloading, it's downloading it, it's pretty good too. So for being a relay server, I'm getting like about a megasecond. So it's pushing it from this machine. Oh. That's our cat here. Yeah, meg out. Yeah, okay. So yeah, which is, oh, now it's going down, but let's just not worry about that. And it's cool because it tells you. Yeah, because we're all downloading. Oh, you guys are? Okay, awesome. Which is, this might be bad, because I didn't really test it for robustness. I have another version that's a little bit better, but that would have been way too much code. I tried to like trim it down, and like the basic essentials. And you guys got to take a look at HTTP, you looked at streams, NPM, all this goodness. I know it's kind of like overwhelming because I just threw all this information at you, but hopefully it like, I don't know, inspired you to build something cool with Node. The slides will be posted. Yeah, in time that we posted. Okay, so I built this thing. There's some improvements we can make. We can improve security. There's no security right now. We can download anything. And then so I have another version of this, which it just relays HTTP servers. So I can start a server behind a NAT and then relay that. So the whole application. So I could do this, and I could forward DDF or Nginx, just anything I could let somebody else access locally. Better error handling. I didn't really do any here. I didn't talk about it at all, but you should definitely do that. More tests would be good. You could do range headers to do like video streaming. So if I had a file locally, someone could stream the video. Just, hey, I want to watch this video. Okay, cool. There's Heroku has this cool button thing that like someone goes to your Git repo, they click the button, and it just launches for them. It's just up. So it's like super easy. Other things, okay. I think that's pretty much it. I'm on time. Yeah, 6:59. Woo. Okay. I think Mike had something he wanted to say.
Any questions?
Oh yeah, sorry. You guys have any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
So, how intensive is it keeping a socket open?
Like a socket IO socket?
Yeah, like a socket IO socket. You have this like real-time connection.
Yeah. Well, the real issue with that is that socket IO is like a set of there's different protocols it supports, which is what makes it so nice because you can use like WebSockets, you can use commit-D, which is another format to kind of do the same thing. It supports all these fallbacks, so it depends on which one you're using. But I think it scales pretty well. It's written in C++, so it's a little bit better than if it's just all in JavaScript. So it scales pretty well. I think you could do like 100 easily. But I think it would be more like your domain. You have to benchmark it for yourself to see where your bottlenecks are. But I think it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. Did that kind of answer your question? Okay, cool. Are there any other questions? You guys like it? Are you guys going to npm install -g my thing now? Huh? Okay. Okay. That's all.
All right, thanks, Chris. Go to the next slide.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I just wanted to do a shout out for CSS Day that's coming up. It's on December 5th, and you can go check out their website, and you can actually use this code to get a 20% discount, which it's already a pretty good price at only $35. So if you're interested, definitely check it out. Great job, Chris. Thank you again. Had some humor, had some people laughing. It's great. And just thanks to everybody for coming out, supporting us. If you want to present anything, or you have topics that you'd like us to present, we have our Meetup site. We have some threads open. Feel free to post. We also have a thread that someone's looking for help for Java material to study. If someone has a good idea for example programs that they can do in addition to coursework, or maybe some just excellent courses that you found that are maybe available online for free. Those would be great to add to that thread as well. And if you would like to actually check out the Connects to offices, definitely stick around and let us know. And feel free to stick around a little bit and talk, or maybe have a little bit more pizza too. Thanks, guys.
I'm so inspired. Yeah.
Wasn't too fast.
That's good, dude. Thank you. I need to turn off the recording.